Yes, welcome into Sports Bet. Betting Insight today, Pauly and Teddy Thursday, May 25th. Deep dive, the champs, the New England Patriots, who had a great offseason. We'll get to their huge move with their win total, and we look to stay red hot with the play of the day. Big game breakdown. You know where we're going. Cavs look to finish off the Celtics in that one. An early look at the NBA Finals. Bad beats, bad bets, bad for the books. Let's start with some bad beats, as always in baseball, bullpen shenanigans. Let's start with the Mets. Led 5-1 early. Still 5-3 in the 7th. The Padres take the lead 6-5 in the 9th. Don't worry about it because the Mets have the bases loaded with nobody out. They don't score. Padres win. Amazing but true. Mets 22-2-4 to the over. In their last 28 against righties, they've lost 6 games this year when leading after 6. Only the Rangers have more, Teddy.
Now note that again. They have a grand total of 2 unders in their last, 28 against righties? Yeah, that's not a whole lot of unders. And of course, last time you have the bases loaded, nobody out against Brad Hand. You gotta punch a run home there. Mets couldn't do it. Bad beat for their backers.
All right, this was tough. Cubs, Giants, total under 7. 4-2 Cubbies, bottom of the 8th. They get an insurance run, which they needed because Wade Davis gave up a 2-run shot in the 9th. He hadn't worked in about, 10 days, something like that? He hadn't worked in a while. First runs he allows all year. That Cubs win, but it goes over 5-4.
Yeah, and of course the Cubs don't cash in the run line. They're up 5-2 in that ball game heading into the 9th. And look, relievers are human beings. They're not going to save every game perfectly. But Davis, rough outing, 34 pitches to get through the 9th. And that insurance run following the Jason Hayward leadoff triple in the bottom of the 8th made all the difference for Chicago if you laid the price. Made no difference whatsoever if you had the Cubs in the run line.
Here's another one. Cody Allen blew it. The bad, tough beat here is the Indians took some money, and he blew it against the Reds at home. Reds get 2 in the 9th off him.
Yeah, Cleveland opened about minus 180, bet up to minus $2, as we've seen every single day with the Indians. The wise guys love this team, regardless of how much money they continue to lose back in Cleveland. And that's the first blown save of the season for Cody Allen. Heck, the guy had only allowed 3 runs all year, but gave up 2 more in the 9th last night.
All right, who else blew a save? How about Ramirez with the Braves? Here's a tough beat. Braves and the under, because they led 5-3 in the 9th. Ramirez gives up 2, and then the Pirates go back to back to back and blow it open in extra innings. The under 9 turns into a losing ticket. Ramirez 3 blown saves, 0 actual saves.
Yeah, that's not a good ratio. And why he was in there in a closing situation, I couldn't tell you. He's been fine as the setup man. He has not gotten the job done in a situation where Atlanta needed him to actually close out a game. And last night, a 5-3 lead turns into 5-5 in the 9th, and under 9 turns from a winner into a loser. Yeah, lots of bullpen shenanigans last night, Pauly.
Yep, this one didn't make any sense here. Bad bets. White Sox D-backs under 9.5, bet down to 9. 8-6 final, Diamondbacks win. And I don't know what they were thinking. This was a bullpen game the entire way. Lovello said Delgado would go a few, then he would turn it over to the pen. They used 6 pitchers. Delgado went 4 innings. So it was strange that they took under money when the Diamondbacks have been great with the bats too.
Yeah, I'm assuming the under money came because they're betting Jose Quintana under 9.5. That makes sense. And Quintana ended up he had a fluky game. He gave up 8 runs and 4 1/3. So the under bettors didn't get a whole lot of help from him. But 8 strikeouts, no walks. Every single base runner, all 8 base runners he allowed, came around to score. So, bullpen game for Arizona. You have those once in a while. And normally the bullpen games, the money comes against that team and the money comes on the over. Wasn't the case. The under took money here. That under, well, the game landed 14. Didn't quite get there.
All right, how about bad for the books? The Twins took money. Get out the broom. They sweep the Orioles, the first-place Twins. I know there's a lot of baseball left, but what a turnaround. They're now 25-18. The Twins are 14-5 on the road, Teddy.
Yeah, and Jose Berrios is a guy that if you haven't heard his name yet, pay attention to this kid. He got tagged for 3 home runs in that ball game. They were all solo shots. Of the other 22 batters he faced, 7 strikeouts, 1 hit, 2 walks. He was dealing, and Minnesota took money and got the win. Another bad result for the books.
And a 20-cent move on the A's at home against the Marlins. Volquez gets the loss. He's 0-7. Sonny Gray, dynamite again.
Yeah, his last 2 games, 18 strikeouts versus only 10 base runners allowed. He struck out 36.7% of all batters faced. Gray wasn't ready those first couple of starts back. He's looking more and more like an ace with every trip to the hill, and the bettors saw it before the books did yesterday with all that money coming in on Oakland.
How about the Yankees? Bet up from 180 to 215. Severino with the shutout.
Oh, yeah. Severino's 3-2 with a 3.11. But the thing that the betting markets are paying attention to most, 61 strikeouts, only 14 walks. Talking about a hot young pitcher wearing pinstripes. Guys like that are going to attract a following in the betting markets. Sure did last night with all that money coming on the Yankees in the shutout win over KC.
All right, this is some troubling news here. New Jersey's up against it to legalize sports betting. The Solicitor General's office yesterday dealt perhaps the death blow, as they said it's not worth the time and for the Supreme Court to hear the gambling-related case. Do you still have hope out there? What are you thinking about the news that happened yesterday?
All right, well, yeah, let's give a little background to begin with. Okay, this has been there's actually 2 ongoing court cases that have been working their way through the system, in theory, to get to the Supreme Court, where the Supreme Court is finally going to decide, is the 1992 PAPSA law, the law that allowed only 4 states to have sports betting, and everyone else, no way, no how, forever. Well, the Supreme Court, in theory, was supposed to rule on that. The space was supposed to get to the Supreme Court, and then the Supreme Court was supposed to rule in our favor, and then we'd have sports betting everywhere. But what happened yesterday with the U.S. Solicitor General's office basically means the Supreme Court is not likely to take the case. The quote, "It has not raised valid constitutional problems with the Professional and Amateur Sports Protection Act of 1992, or PASPA, which barred legal sports betting outside of Nevada and a few other states." So now what happens? Well, here's a legal advisor, Dennis Drazen. He's a legal advisor of the racetracks looking to add sports books. Quote, "Obviously, we're disappointed." Yeah, gee, you think? But it's certainly more than just disappointment for the situation. Now, it's a matter of, well, guess what? It's not going to get to the Supreme Court. There is still one last legal avenue for New Jersey, and Drazen thinks the state lawmakers could pursue that. That's a full repeal of all state laws against sports betting. That's a so-called Wild West scenario. The quote, "If New Jersey wishes to repeal its prohibition on sports gambling altogether and thereby remain silent with respect to such gambling, PAPSA does not stand in its way." So there is a path there for New Jersey. And there's another path, Pauly, we can talk about in a minute.
Yeah, well, this wouldn't you think this is like marijuana? Where finally you get people on board and say, what are we doing here? This is ridiculous.
No, because with marijuana, there's a lot of companies that stand to make a lot of money. With sports betting, there's not a lot of companies that stand to make a lot of money. And with marijuana, the states, oh, look at all this tax revenue. We can tap into this tax revenue. With sports betting, if we start talking about states getting tax revenue, we're talking about the end of 11 to win 10. And now we're talking about 12 to win 10. And when you start doing that, that's the end of professional bettors, plain and simple. So, you know, it's a situation where they could do a full repeal in New Jersey. They could go for that approach. Or, you know, there is other possibility. Well, here's what the American Gaming Association said. Quote, "The 25-year-old ban on sports betting is fueling a thriving $150 billion illegal gambling market that deprives states of revenue that can instead pay for vital public services. The casino gaming industry is building a diverse coalition of stakeholders who will work with Congress and the Trump administration to lift the unconstitutional ban on sports betting and give states the freedom to regulate this increasingly popular American pastime." All right, you know, that's what they're supposed to say. Here's what Drazen says. You know, I think 5 years from now, sports betting will be legal. I also think this country has a lot more important things to deal with first, so that's not that high on Congress's radar right now. We just need to be patient, which is the last freaking thing any sports bettor needs when you're talking about legalizing this stuff. It's been forever, Pauly, and you know what? Looks like it may be forever into the future. I'm fascinated to see if New Jersey is going to go for that. Hey, let's just take all the laws against sports betting off the books and see what happens. That, to me, be an interesting scenario to try to fill up those casinos in Atlantic City that are just dead on weekends like the Super Bowl and March Madness, where they could obviously be thriving should they had sports betting.
Cavs and Celtics up next, Game 5. Cavs look to close them out. Coming up on SportsBet. Betting Insight today on SBRPicks.com.
Go to SBROdds.com. Browse, compare, and shop live odds available at top online sportsbooks.
Hey, back on SportsBet. Betting Insight today, Pauly and Teddy. Time for a big game breakdown. As always, live odds, SBR odds, and Sportsbook Review Rating Guide. Make sure you're betting with a trustworthy shop out there. Here we go. Celtics at home catching 10, 2-16. Cavs look to finish the job, and if they win, we'll have the first matchup ever where the same teams have played 3 years in a row in the finals. This is available too, Teddy. What do you think of the series price, which is all over the place? I talked to Jay Cornegay, top guy at the Superbook here in Vegas at the Westgate. A couple guys in the back room made it 240, 260. One guy made it 340 on the Warriors.
Well, that's just it. Now I don't feel so bad for having a tough time making that number, because as I've talked to people around town over the last couple days and heard the quotes from various bookmakers, I mean, minus 180, minus 220, minus 260, minus $2. There are bettable numbers right now, okay? Golden State, they opened 7. Now it's 7.5. Total of 225. These are only against Cleveland. These are not bettable numbers against Boston. But we're assuming that the Cavs will find a way to win at least one of the final 3 games of this series. But Warriors 7.5/225 for game 1. Series price, open lower, has been bet up. Minus 300 at stations here in Vegas right now. Minus 290 offshore. It's been Golden State taking the early money when it comes to the NBA Finals. But for this one, well, Cavs got to win one more game before we can talk about them officially in the NBA Finals.
All right, that'll be hardcore tomorrow if they on Friday's show if they close it out tonight. Cavs didn't get to the basket enough in Game 3, and it cost them. Look at this graphic from Tuesday's show, and they got back to the basics. Game 3, 12 of 19 in the paint, 24 points, 39 threes. Game 4, 29 of 40 in the paint, 58 points, 22 threes. And Kyrie was the key to hitting the ball inside. James' fourth foul came with 6:46 left in the second quarter. Boston led by 10. They didn't take advantage of that. Remember, they led by 10 at halftime. And then the official play-by-play, it was Kyrie layup, Kyrie layup, Kyrie layup. Next thing you know, 89-80 Cavs at the end of the third quarter. They won on a 56-37 run over 18 minutes and 46 seconds. Kyrie got to the basket 9 times, made 8. He had 42 points. He only took 7 3-pointers. LeBron had 34, and 21 of the 27 shots were 2-pointers. Lou, he put us on his back and carried us. Kyrie's quote, in the back of my mind, I was like, I'm saying to myself, they cannot tie up this series. We cannot go to Boston 2-2, and then it becomes almost an even series. It was close, Teddy. I mean, we were thinking about that, and they were up 16, and the Cavs almost came back and got the cover.
Yeah. Let's go back to this graphic one more time. All right. You know, we showed the graphic on the preview for Game 4 about what Cleveland did in Game 3, which is basically jack up a bunch of threes. And look at that. Game 3, only 19 shots in the paint, 39 from beyond the arc. Game 4, they win. They don't cover, but they win going away by double digits. 40 field goals in the paint, only 22 from beyond the arc. That's the right ratio for the Cavs. And when Kyrie Irving can break down a defense and get the ball inside like he did with layup after layup after layup, all of a sudden that opens things up a lot more for the bevy of those Cavs perimeter shooters. So, I mean, you talk about the Kyrie Irving quote. How about the Brad Stevens quote? Because I think that's definitely worth touching on here. Stevens, quote, Kyrie Irving and LeBron James would be the 2 answers. They were unbelievable. Irving was incredible at the end of the third, and then obviously LeBron had all those baskets in the fourth. I thought that we played, as well as we've played maybe the entire playoffs in the first half. We were really good defensively, but that's what great teams do. They make it really hard on you, and it always worries me, Pauly, not a little bit. It worries me a lot when you talk about a coach that said, we just played the best game of the entire playoffs, and oh, by the way, we ended up getting blown out in the second half and losing by double digits. To me, that's a concern for any team facing elimination. They may well already be thinking Cancun.
Yeah, well, no, I don't think not with this team because they played well for a half. Imagine what would have happened if guys were knocking down shots. They didn't get a lot of help from Bradley, and they certainly didn't get any help from Smart as he came back down to earth. Game 3, 8 of 14, 7 of 10 from 3 with 27 points. Game 4, 1 of 9, 8 points. He was terrible, but something they cannot fix. They're getting killed in the paint, and they're getting beat down low, and they only grabbed 45.9% of available rebounds, lost the points in the paint by 24. So we'll see what they show tonight. Again, that's a lot of points. It's a crazy point spread with the team on the road. Cavs in closeout games since LeBron's return. 9-0 straight up, 6-3 ATS. At -10, they would be 3-6 ATS. Here's the history with LeBron in closeout games, Teddy, since he came back.
Yeah, I mean, that's the key. Is that you're looking at LeBron and how good he's done in Cleveland, these closeout games. I'm sure it's going to be on SportsCenter. Look at Cleveland. This is what they do. 9-0 straight up. And they've cashed. They've been moneymakers in this role, obviously, although it hasn't been ridiculous. But, and that was a mistake on mine. That's 6-2-1 against the spread. Yeah. But if you look at the point spreads in these games, you're not seeing the Cavs -10 on the road. If you look in these closeout games, again, 9-0 straight up, great. 6-2-1 ATS, great. Then put that in the context of this year's point spread at -10, 3-6 ATS, despite winning all 9 of those games. And a lot of them, I mean, we saw the game in Indiana where they blew that big lead and, were unable to maintain focus. Against Toronto already this year. They didn't put that game away. If you're laying the price with the Cavs tonight, they got to put this team away and keep their foot down. And Boston, I mean, they're more likely than most teams, I think, to avoid the, hey, we're going to Cancun after the game mindset. It is a young group. They are building for the future. And you know what? They probably owe something to the home fans after those Game 1 and Game 2 disasters. From an effort standpoint, certainly Game 2 was about as bad as it gets for Boston. So I'm with you conceptually. The spread's too high. The Celtics are coming to play. All of that stuff comes into play. And yet, I'm still not convinced that I want to get to the window with Boston in this game, in a game that I'm fairly convinced they're going to lose.
All right, up next, the champs. We continue with the AFC East and a huge move on the Patriots win total. Coming up next on SportsBet, betting insight today on SBRpicks.com.
Research before you bet. Be sure to check out SBR Picks for the best game predictions, breakdowns, and much, much more.
Wrap it up on SportsBet, betting insight today. Time for the deep dive. The champs opened 11 with their win total to South Point. Other openers 11.5. Now up to 12.5. Under -120. 14-2 last year straight up. 13-3 ATS. And then 3-0 ATS in the playoffs too. How about that? 10-6 to the under as well. I don't know why they opened it up so low. But they think, well, Tom Brady going to be 40 years old. At some point he'll drop off. Not the case, but look at this. The defending champs have won 14, 12, 12, 12, 12, 13, 14, 10, 11, 16, 12, 10, 14, and 14 wins the last 14 years. Hard to bet under given those numbers. And worth noting, at 12.5 wins, the Patriots would be 6 overs, 8 unders the last 14 years instead of 12, 1-1 to the over. That was historic, Teddy, what they did ATS last year winning the Super Bowl.
Sure. Now, there's a lot of points to talk about here. And I want to go back to something we said earlier in the show about the Cavs and them laying 10 on the road at Boston. The markets adjust. So, yeah, Cleveland's won all those games in closeout situations, but the point spread just keeps on going up and up and up, and you're not getting the same type of lines now to back the Cavs in a closeout game as you were 2 years ago. So here's New England, okay? And all they've done is cash over bets, over. 12-1-1 to the over the last 14 years. I did cash an under ticket with them the 1 year where they stayed under, and I think that was by a hook. But the totals haven't been this high. You don't see totals of 12.5 in the NFL. At 12.5 wins, at the current number, the Patriots, the best franchise in the league, would have cashed 8 unders and only 6 overs in the last 14 years, Pauly. That is significant. And when you talk about a squad that is the most public team in the NFL and the defending Super Bowl champs, And they went 13-3 against the spread last year. And then 3-0 against the spread in the playoffs. So 16-3 against the spread for the season. This is not a team you're likely to find many point spread bargains with. I know the Patriots have been really good. And everyone loves their offseason. We'll talk about it right here. But, man, 12.5 is too high, Pauly. It legitimately is. And I understand where the markets have to price it that way. But it matters. You know, the number itself matters. And 12.5 is the highest win total that we've seen in quite some time.
Only 3 games decided by less than a touchdown. The Super Bowl, the late game against the Jets on the road when they took a knee 3 times. First and goal from the 3, and then week 1 against Arizona with Garoppolo. Mainstream stats, 23 takeaways, 11 giveaways, plus 12 margin. That was 3rd in the league. Offense, 5.9 yards per play on offense. That was 6th in the NFL. 3.9 yards per rush, 25th. Blunt had 18 touchdowns, but that's not what they like to do. 8.1 yards per pass, that was 3rd. Defense, 84.3 QB rating allowed was 8th. 34 sacks, right around league average. 3.9 yards per rush allowed, tied for 9th. Multiple edges for this organization, Teddy. Run them down.
Yeah, well, let's start with the giveaways, though. 11 giveaways for the entire season, Pauly. They only gave a ball, that's fumbles, interceptions, everything. You know, no wonder they had a plus 12 turnover margin last year. And the Patriots are a team we expect to have a positive turnover margin. But I don't expect any team to have only 11 giveaways over the course of a full season. I have to expect that number to go up this year. And then, you know, you talk about the 3.9 yards per rush. That's just proof that the NFL is not a run-first league. Brady only sacked 24 times last year. You know, number 3 in the NFL in yards per pass. And defensively, the numbers are solid. But when you talk about the edges, and these are not edges that you're going to find when you look at personnel. All right, these are edges that New England has that basically no other team in the league has, and that's how the Patriots have been as good as they've been. Let's start with number 1. There's no disconnect whatsoever between the front coach, the front office, and the head coach. Belichick wants somebody, he gets somebody. It's that simple for New England. It's not that way in any other team in the National Football League, Pauly. And then you have veterans, you know, veterans who are chasing a ring. They're willing to sign New England for it. What did they get Chris Long for last year? $20? That doesn't happen in Miami. That doesn't happen in Buffalo. Ring chasers will sign with the Pats at below market rates. You know, and then what else do we have? We have the division. The AFC East has been a weaker division, literally a weaker than average division for decades. I went back to 2002, and every single year, Pauly, since 2002, the Patriots have had a winning record, 4-2 or better in division. Lots of years 5-1, lots of years 6-0. So it's a weak division. 4, the quarterback's not chasing money. Okay, Brady has made $196 million in football earnings, plus God knows how much in endorsements. He has a cap-friendly contract, ton of deferred money. The salary cap hit on New England for Brady last year was $13.7 million. That was $3 million less than the Niners paid for Colin Kaepernick and the Bears paid for Jay Cutler. It is an ultimate team-friendly contract, and that allows New England to spend their money to sign another player. And last but not least, the coaching staff continuity. Belichick doesn't make a lot of bad hires, and basically every impact coach from last year's team returns again this year. This isn't a team that's leapfrogging from system to system and multiple coaches and multiple coordinators, and these are all inherent advantages for New England, advantages that other teams just don't have.
When his wife was modeling, she made more than him, and it wasn't even close about Brady. How about that? Now, I had Trey Wingo on the VSiN show I do, and he said, hey, no one had a better offseason, and he's right. After winning the Super Bowl, they get Gilmore. They also add Gillislee. They kept Butler and Hightower. They traded for Brandon Cooks and Dwayne Allen. They're already stacked at wide receiver. The last thing they needed was another weapon like Cooks. They lost some people, though. Logan Ryan, but they replaced him with Gilmore. They got rid of Bennett, who went to Green Bay, replaced him with Allen as well. And then if something happens to Brady or they decide to move on, they still have, down the road, they still have Garoppolo to step right in and take over for him. And a lot of people in football love Garoppolo. What do you have on the schedule?
The last thing about the Patriots before we get to schedule is, of course, the draft. I mean, with all those trades, when you're trading for Brandon Cooks and you're trading for Dwayne Allen and all that, they basically had very little left for the draft. They only made 4 picks, and they were all on the lines, 2 on the offensive line, 2 on the defensive line. So not necessarily an impact draft for New England, but when it comes to veteran talent, no question, this team is loaded. And, of course, they do have that drop-below chit if they choose to cash it. Now, from a schedule standpoint, last year, surprise, surprise. And it seems to happen a lot with New England because they get to beat up on their own division. They played one of the weakest schedules in the NFL in 2016. This year, it's much closer to at least a league average schedule. Not tough. It's still not tough because they play 6 games against AFC East foes that are all lined as sub-500 squads. And, the AFC East faces the NFC South and the AFC West. Those are 2 relatively tough divisions. 7 of the 8 teams lined at 8 wins or higher. San Diego at 7.5. So they're all right there. And there are 2 extra games, both against quality teams, Houston and at Pittsburgh. A weird scheduling dynamic in this regard, Pauly. There's only one home game, only one game in Foxborough for New England between Halloween and Christmas Eve.
Have you seen that before? They play 5 out of 6 on the road.
Yeah, with a bye in the mix, too. Yes, I have seen it before. They do have a 3-game road trip. Doesn't happen a lot.
The bye's week 9. They go at Denver, at Mexico City for the Raiders, Miami at home, then at Buffalo, at Miami, at Pittsburgh. There's no bye in there.
I know. It's a tough spot. And look, the road slate out of division, you have the Bucs, the Texans, the Saints, the Broncos, and the Raiders in Mexico City. That's not easy. That's not a joke. Again, we're still talking league average based on the overall strength of the overall schedule situation, but it is not a spot for where you're going to look at New England and say, yeah, this schedule is really easy like it was last year. It is a good notch or 2 tougher, regardless of how much you love their offseason moves.
All right, tomorrow, hopefully we're previewing the finals, and we'll also preview the Jets. Peter King thinks they're the worst team in football coming up. Money time, hold your nose for this one. Back to the Patriots. Oh, no, what are you doing?
No, I'm not holding my nose. Look at Belichick's look right there. Look at all those seasons we had where New England won 12 games and 11 games and 10 games. Patriots still going to be good. 12.5 is too high. It is the wrong total for this team. The markets have overreacted. Markets have adjusted. Now bettors must adjust. You like them over? That's great. You got it in your pocket? Even better. Right now, we'll take New England under 12.5 wins. That's our play of the day.
We're loaded tonight. Google Hangout every Thursday, 8 o'clock Pacific. Get in here, answer questions. If you can't be part of it live, go back and watch it. They always post it on SBR and YouTube, and we tweet it out. It's going to be fun. We could be previewing the finals. We'll give you a lot of great stats in Major League Baseball. We'll talk some NFL if you want as well. And we could have some college football stuff to go over as well. Well, I know Chris Andrews at the South Point's been working hard. We'll talk to you then on SportsBit. Betting Insight today on SBRPicks.com.